let's do it.
Here we are.
Our mascot is being
Kind of
super creepy today. Hey, buddy.
the looking up from the
They're just
eyelids, the
staring
evil
into the
stare.
camera. Yeah, so evil. Wow. Well, welcome back, everybody. We have a really cool topic that I'm going to have Amy introduce because it was her idea.
Okay. Well, so yeah, today we're going to talk about psychics, but specifically their involvement with solving crimes or mysteries of some sort. And mine got a little bit derailed, but we'll save that for when I'm telling my stories. So,
Yay.
yeah.
Yeah,
But,
Amy proposed this idea and I was like, hell yeah, this sounds really cool. So
yeah.
I think I go first this week, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I originally was really convinced in my mind that they brought in a psychic to investigate the John Benet Ramsey case, but it actually seems like they didn't. Like there are people after the fact who have like claimed to have spoken to John Benet and that John Benet's spirit's very persistent about what happened
Right.
and like
Mm-hmm.
why am I here? Like what happened to me? Like
Oh,
whatever.
that's sad.
Very sad. But there's a lot of like conflicting information and no one was like officially brought in on the case. So I ended up pivoting a bit and actually instead of focusing on specific crimes, I focused on the psychics themselves because there are a lot of commonalities across like certain groups of psychics have solved a ton of crimes. So
Yeah. Cool.
without further ado, so this first one talks about Rosemarie Kerr, and this is the case of Andre Daigle. So back in the 80s, June 9th, 1987, a 27-year-old New Orleans resident, Andre Daigle, met a friend for dinner and a few rounds of pool. It turned into a long night of drinking, after which Daigle was never seen alive again. So spooky. So when the news of his disappearance reached his sister, Elise Ginley, in Southern California, she sought the help of psychic Rosemarie Kerr to pick up where the New Orleans police had left off, because the police actually didn't suspect foul play, but his sister Elise was like, that's not right. Kerr placed a finger on a photo of Daigle and sensed immediately that he was dead. And according to her testimony in the murder trial that followed, Kerr also correctly identified where Daigle's body would be found in a swamp, like a specific swamp in New Orleans. So the discovery helped break the case, which resulted in the conviction of two men, and this is so sad, who ended up testifying that they killed Daigle for sport.
Oh, no.
So
Ew.
very, very sad. On a brighter note, Kerr was actually the first psychic ever, and is female, first psychic ever to be placed on a witness stand in a murder trial. She passed away in 2015, but she was involved in a lot of different like cases like this. This was the most like dramatic of them, but it was obviously historic because it was the first time a psychic was ever put on trial.
Yeah, so that's amazing.
That's Rosemarie Kerr. Yeah, so she gets like kind of honorable mention. I didn't go into a lot of her other cases, but I wanted to like start with her because it's just like cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Nancy Weber is the next one. So the first case, this was in 1982. On November 23rd, 18-year-old Amy Hoffman left her part-time job at a shopping mall in Morristown, New Jersey, but apparently never got farther than the parking lot. The next day, her car was found where she had parked it with the driver door left open. Foul play was immediately suspected, and when police came up empty-handed, they approached Nancy Weber. So this time, the police actually approached the psychic. She's a local psychic in New Jersey. And because they'd successfully worked with her in the past. So Nancy, who had already had visions of Hoffman's body and the assault she had endured before being killed, led police down an investigative trail that ultimately ended with the murder conviction of James Kodetich, who had struck again in the meantime, killing a 25-year-old named Deirdre O'Brien. So she had already had visions. The police came to her and were like, can you help us solve this case? And she was like, you betcha.
I'm already on it.
Yeah, and then this guy, like, in the meantime, killed somebody else, which is so sad. But they got him in the end. So,
good.
I mean, it's not like a happy story, but at least he was brought to justice.
Yeah.
In 1987, a 42-year-old nurse and mother of 5 named Elizabeth Cornish was beaten to death in her New Jersey apartment. The only suspect was Cornish's boyfriend, who had found the body. However, no one in the Cornish family could fathom the boyfriend was the killer. So Cornish's sister approached, again, Nancy Weber, who's local to New Jersey, for help. Weber knew immediately that Cornish's boyfriend had not committed the crime and alerted local police, who were familiar with Weber and her work, obviously, because they'd reached out to her in the past. At the scene of the crime, Weber told police the killer lived right upstairs from Cornish. Weber's description of the killer matched 33-year-old John Reese, who lived in the apartment just above Elizabeth. Reese was able to provide an alibi for the time of death the coroner initially identified, though. However, Weber was relentless in her belief not only that Reese was the killer, but actually that the time of death was 4 hours earlier. Oh. This is wild. Upon re-examination, the coroner changed the time of death, rendering Reese's alibi moot. Reese subsequently confessed and was sentenced to life in prison for torture.
Wow.
How crazy is that?
That's incredible. Yeah, that's amazing.
Like, because I could see, you know, like if she was like, the guy upstairs did it, maybe she'd seen him and so could describe him closely and whatever. Mm-hmm. But then if he had an alibi, like she wouldn't have known the time of death unless she was like monitoring this woman. And why would she without knowing she was killed? So it's just like, and then the coroner's like, okay, well, let me look again. And they're like, oh shit, actually, she's right. And then he confessed. Yeah. Like if he had just said like, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty till the end, like, okay, maybe that's a little, like the coroner just changed it to make it match. But that's wild.
Yeah, she cracked the case. That's so cool. They make all the difference in the stories.
It's wild. Yeah. So last one for Nancy Weber. So Debbie Keyes, who's a mother of 3 from Harding, New Jersey, had not seen her 3 children in 13 months, not since their father had abducted them. Keyes brought the idea of seeking the assistance of a psychic to the detective working the case, Sergeant Lou Masterbone.
Interesting.
Great name. Skeptical of psychics, Masterbone was reluctant. However, as he told CNN's Nancy Grace in 2005, Weber led them on a 3-state chase that ended in Hawaii, with Keyes being reunited with her kids. So she found her kids. Yeah. And got them back, which is so like, heartwarming.
Yeah. What must it be like to be a psychic? Like, you just have these things come to you somehow.
Well, did you ever watch that show Medium with Patricia Arquette?
Oh, yeah.
That show, I mean, the way that they portray it makes it so, I mean, and it's like sometimes the murderer can also see into her mind. And it's like,
yeah, it's a little
but so much. Like, but it seems really scary. It's like she's living the crime like every night, like a new crime or whatever, until one's solved and then it's on to the next one. It's so stressful.
Yeah. Yikes.
Those 3 though, I mean, I don't know about the first and the third one. They all seem, I don't know, they all seem plausible to me. The second one just seems so wild. Like the timing and the, I don't know. Everyone was like, they were convinced it was the boyfriend, and the whole family, including her 5 kids, were like, it's not him.
No. Yeah.
So that one's kind of wild.
That is.
Wow. So on to the next. Dorothy Allison is the next psychic. John DeMars was a happily married 30-year-old New York City banker with 2 young children when he boarded his evening commuter train to Nutley, New Jersey on December 20th, 1974. However, when the train stopped in Nutley, DeMars was not on board. The police investigation, which addressed both foul play committed against DeMars and the possibility that DeMars had voluntarily run away, eventually called upon the assistance of psychic Dorothy Allison. Allison told detectives she saw John falling off the train and drowning, And while Allison couldn't exactly say where this happened or say exactly where this happened, she did say she saw a bow and arrow and the numbers 222. Although law enforcement couldn't make sense of the clues Allison offered, the body of John DeMars turned up 2 months later on February 22, which is 222. A father and son had been practicing archery by the shore of the Passaic River, which runs along DeMars's train route, when one of their arrows landed beside his body in shallow water.
Whoa. Oh my God.
Crazy!
That is crazy.
Police later pieced together that DeMars had fallen asleep on the train, and when the conductor made an unscheduled stop along the Passaic River Bridge, DeMars, still half asleep, stepped off the train, falling off the bridge and drowning, which is very sad. But
yeah,
fascinating how she, like, those clues that make no sense. But
yeah.
it's like, oh, well, there you go.
There it is. Wow.
There it is.
Crazy.
So separately, on May, so that one was 1974. This one is 1976. So May 15, 14-year-old Susan Jacobson left her Staten Island home for an after-school job at a local ice cream parlor and never returned home. Law enforcement dismissed the parents' concerns, claiming the girl had simply run away with her boyfriend. In desperation, the Jacobsons contacted psychic Dorothy Allison. Upon meeting the Jacobsons, Allison experienced a disturbing vision in which Susan was strangled by her boyfriend, and she offered several clues as to where the body was found. Again, the clues themselves were mysterious: an abandoned car, the smell of fuel oil, 2 smokestacks. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's Friday.
There's lungs, smokestacks. Smokestacks, and the letters MAR in red spray paint. Law enforcement declined to investigate the clues further, but incredibly enough, Jacobson's father was able to use them to locate a rock spray painted with the letters MAR at an abandoned World War I shipyard, from which 2 smokestacks and an abandoned car could be seen. And that's where Susan's body was found 2 years later, concealed in 2 oil drums.
Whoa.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Crime scene evidence pointed to none other than the boyfriend, Dempsey Hawkins, a UK national who was deported back to England and sentenced to 22 years in prison.
Wow.
Scary.
Yeah. How do you begin to explain these things? Like, it's not just coincidence.
I know. Well, and the thing that a lot of people, I feel, will say is, like, it's not that they're not gifted. Like, it's not that they're not gifted. It's that they're not psychic. It's that they have like Monk. I don't know if you ever watched that show. Like an insane like ability to basically have a photographic memory, to connect things, like see tiny details of things and whatever. But then it's like 2 smokestacks, the smell of fuel, MAR in red spray paint. Like, how do you, it's just like, I don't know.
Right.
It seems like a jump to me, but I think in some cases that's true. Like people who are like magicians or whatever, who are like psychics in like a performance style. I think that is more, that's suiting to those people. But I don't know, man. It's weird.
It is weird. Yeah. Amazing.
Explain it. Okay, so this is the last one. So Christy Robinette is the next and last psychic. So in 2004, so these are much more recent, 20-year-old Ashley Howley disappeared from the town of Columbus, Ohio. While the case went cold, Ashley, or rather her spirit, was diligently trying to communicate with Christy Robinette, a Michigan spiritual medium who spoke extensively with Reader's Digest, which is where a lot of these stories came from, about helping law enforcement solve crimes like this one. Ashley's spirit, which according to Robinette needed time to figure out how to get her message across, eventually told Robinette she'd been murdered by her boyfriend, of course, where her body could be found. In 2008, her body was found in the very spot she said it would be, marked by a stick, and her boyfriend was brought to justice.
Wow.
So wild. Robinette was then visited by another young woman from Ohio in August of 2005. It was the spirit of 20-year-old Julie Popovich, a student at Ohio State University, who had disappeared earlier that month. Julie's body was discovered 3 weeks later, but not before, quote, Julie pushed her way through the other spirits waiting to speak with me and asked me to draw a map, the map of where her body would be found, end quote, as Robinette explains it.
Whoa.
Katie was new story. Katie was a troubled child living in a group home when she ran away. That's when Robinette got a call from Katie's parents. Hearing the panic of Katie's mom on the phone, I knew I had to help. And so I first tuned in to see if I sensed her spirit alive or gone, Robinette recounts. Happily, she felt Katie was alive, and she was. With Robinette's help, law enforcement was able to locate Katie before something terrible happened to her.
Oh, wow.
So that one on a bright note, because
yes, that is sweet. Wow.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. I don't know.
And there are this is like a very small sample size of all of the stories that exist. It was I was overwhelmed, in terms of which ones to pick. And I wanted to pick psychics that had a few under their belt, because I feel like that makes them a little more, reliable, I guess. Yeah, credible. But there were so many. And that what I find to be the most interesting are the ones where it just seems impossible that it's that attention to detail, kind of OCD, photographic memory thing, because it's things like seeing visions of these specific clues that just don't make a lot of sense. And then there was one, I can't remember what exactly the case was, but the person was already dead, and the psychic, it was a male psychic, and he saw these two words on in his mind around where the body would be found. And it turned out one word was part of the name of the lake where the body was dumped, and the other word was the street that the lake was on, or the township or something random. I think that one was in the UK, but it was really just crazy little details like that, where it's unless he murdered the person and dumped the body.
That's what I was thinking.
I understand how you would know that. But it was then I think, again, the boyfriend confessed and he had done it. So it's I don't know. It's just wild. I have no logical way to explain that. If any of you listening are oh, I know how to explain that, please write us at girlscallspooky@gmail.com, because I would love to be debunked on this, but I just can't fathom how you could possibly know that. And on the flip side, no psychic ability has ever been confirmed, scientifically confirmed. It also it has been debunked on many occasions, but not every situation has been debunked. So it's of course you're going to have people who are pretending, but oh man, it's freaking weird.
It is. And particularly with mediums, spirit mediums, that show that came out recently with Tyler Henry, or I think that's his name.
Yeah.
When you're trying to connect with an individual person and you're able to reveal these details of their life that presumably the family did not share with you.
Right.
How, I don't know, there is no logical explanation for how he can tap into that.
Yeah.
That's
amazing. Special nicknames you had for them when they were little, or what, all those weird little, their favorite food, things you, maybe some you could find online, but others it's not likely.
No,
I don't know.
It's a personal connection.
Yeah. And on a similar note, it's not psychic, but energetic readings. There's a friend of mine here in Toronto has an energy healer who all she has of my friend is her first name and her phone number. That's all she has. And I think she used actually her work phone number because it can't be traced back to her because it just leads to our company. So that's all she had. And this woman was able to sense physical injuries. She was were you in some sort of car accident and really messed up your neck and back? And she was yeah. She not a car, I don't remember what was a car accident. Or she was stepping off a subway or something and ended up falling onto a train track or something like that, like a streetcar track. It was messed up. yeah, like
Wow.
crazy shit. And like, oh, do you have like tendonitis in your right knee? It's just
Yeah.
crazy crap. It's just like, how the hell? Like,
Yeah.
and it's not like, oh, she took 5 shots in the dark and 3 were right. It was like every
Right.
single one was right.
Right. Yeah.
So
Amazing.
interesting. So interesting. And then she would do
Well,
relationship stuff too. So she'd like read my friend's energy and then she'd be like, does this guy's name like start with like a J? And she'd be like, yep, it's Jason. And
yeah.
then she'd be like, okay, I'm getting a very like he has something like he has a parent that's sick or like a sibling
Mm.
that's sick. She's like, yep, his mom's sick. You know what I mean? It's just like, what? Like, how
Yeah.
could you know that?
Yeah.
Because it's
I
not like these
know.
are guys that she's like dating. It's like guys or like that she's with. It's like a guy who she's been on like 2 dates with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, even if she
Right.
found my friend, it'd be impossible to track her, trace her to this one guy out of
Yeah.
probably hundreds she's connected to on social media, for example. It's just
Right.
freaking bizarro. I just am
It
like,
really
how's
is. I wonder how it feels for them to try to open up and receive
I
these things
mean,
from other people. Hopefully, they can shut it
how
down and not just constantly have
constant.
things coming through.
Well, like
I don't know.
Medium, and then what's the one with Jennifer Love Hewitt? Uh,
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
yeah. I think I know what you're talking about, but
Ghost
I don't
Whisperer?
remember.
Ghost Whisperer?
Maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Mhm.
I loved that show. But for the two of them, like, I mean, obviously those are very fictional, but like,
Yeah.
make it seem like it's just a constant
Ugh.
onslaught. Like, you have no
Yeah.
control, which that would suck.
It's miserable. Yeah. I wouldn't
But,
want that.
well, I feel like it would drive anybody to like alcoholism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'd be like, I can't cope with
I
that.
need an escape. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny though, because the other day I was laying down and I was doing a meditation, and when I lay down, like on my back, Biggs likes to sit on my chest and sleep. Like he'll put his
Hmm.
head on my collarbone, and it was so interesting because I wasn't like doing deep breaths or anything, but I just was doing like part of the meditation was like envisioning like a golden light coming down like from your head down to your feet, like filling up your body and your aura,
Hmm.
basically. And it was so funny because when I got to the part where it was like at my like neck and chest, his little
Hmm.
head popped up. And I was
Oh,
like, that's
he
weird.
felt
And
it.
it
Yeah.
probably was a coincidence. But then I was like, I kind of opened my eyes and like he like settled back down and put his head back again. And I was like, I
Hmm.
wonder if I can recreate that. So I was like trying
Yeah.
to like push my energy onto him to like get a
Uh-huh.
reaction, and I couldn't do it. But I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
trying. I'm convinced.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. And those are
Yeah.
things that I like to believe also, like
Mhm.
whether it's, hooey or not. It's just
Yeah.
kind of nice to
Hooey.
think about energetic
Well, and
connections, which I know we've
and
talked
even
about
thinking,
before.
yeah, and like the healing touch thing, like feeling the
Hmm.
energy between you and I, like that shit's crazy to me. Like, but it's
Yeah.
real. Like we both experienced
Hmm.
that firsthand.
Yeah.
I
Right.
don't know. I don't know, man.
Ooh. Yeah. How cool.
Yeah,
Well,
that's all. That's all I got. You're up.
very cool. So, yes, I have two things today, and I they're actually both unsolved. So, it's a little bit
Ooh,
different than yours because these one has psychic involvement that seems
okay.
promising, but the other actually didn't have any at all. So, I was mistaken about that one.
Okay.
Um, but we'll get into it. So, the first one is Kristen Smart, who I believe we've talked about her before a little bit, but just to
Hmm.
recap, she was this very vibrant young woman who went missing during her first year of college at the same university where Olivia and I went to school. And she was last seen on the school campus just outside of the dorms where most first year students live, including Olivia and me. And her case is still unsolved, like I said, largely due to incidents of police mishandling of the case and of evidence,
Yeah.
and pretty much just plain negligence on their part. Um, Although now the person that I 100% believe is responsible for this is on trial.
Yeah.
But that took 25 years to make that happen. So,
Yeah.
and tragically, her body still hasn't been found. So there is a really good podcast about this that I'm pretty sure I've also already talked about, but it's called Your Own Backyard. And I really recommend it if you're interested in true crime, because it tells her story really well. And it also focuses on Kristen herself, which I think is really nice, rather than just here's all the awful things that happened to
Morbid
her.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's great. But there's one episode of that podcast that mentions how the Smart family, they were receiving just a deluge of tips from psychics or people who were claiming to be psychics.
Alleged.
Yes, which I think that's probably more likely. I don't know why anyone would pretend to be psychic in this case because
How cruel.
it's so cruel. And her loving, dedicated father, he followed up on every single tip that they got, which is just so heart-wrenching to think about.
I mean, he's still like,
those,
he said recently, like, I'll never give up looking for her.
Yeah, right.
Until we have her body or she's back home, I'll never give up for her.
Yeah, exactly. So,
devastating.
Yeah, but none of those tips that they got were worthwhile until one that was a psychic, named Kathy Lynn, and she worked with a private investigator named Susie McHaney. And Kathy, the psychic, she had a vision of Kristen having been buried in a remote area of Wasna, which is a rural town / part of San Luis Obispo County where all of this took place. So Kathy's vision of this place was clear enough that she was able to draw a map for Susie, the PI. And she led her basically to find this specific rock outcrop where she believed Kristen was buried. Although I guess she didn't lead her directly to this one outcrop of rocks. She just gave a general area, like follow this trail, XYZ. But she was able to draw a picture of what this outcropping looked like in the vision that she received, which I have a picture of that I can send to you.
Yeah.
But so she drew the map, she drew that picture, and she also said, this is a quote, "You will find Kristen wedged between a boulder and a rock wall, hair on one end and a shoe on the other, red fabric or paper by her head." And so this tip was really worth following up on because the Floreses, who are Paul and Ruben, they're the ones who are on trial right now. They used to own property or live out in Huasna. I wasn't too sure. But Paul, the son, who's most likely the murderer, was known to spend time out there. And in fact, an unnamed witness who also lived in that area had seen Ruben Flores, who is the dad, driving his truck really closely followed by another car with an unidentifiable driver on the weekend of Kristen's disappearance in 1996. So, because of that, the police searched that area, as did the PI, Susie, who actually brought a cadaver dog with her, but unfortunately, they didn't turn up anything either. However, in this episode of Your Own Backyard, the host, whose name is Chris Lambert, he meets up with a woman and her daughter who frequently used to hike out in that area. And so the mom recalls being out for a hike. It was either 1998 or 99, so either 2 or 3 years after Kristen's disappearance. And she spotted a single red shoe, which was upside down and partially buried in the dirt.
Oh.
Yes, and she remembers that and taking note of that all these years later because she was aware that that area had been searched in connection with Kristen's case. But at the time, she did not know about Kathy's prediction of where Kristen could be found. And she didn't know that it involved both a shoe and red fabric. So she saw a red shoe. Kathy had predicted red fabric.
Yeah.
And also that Kristen had gone missing while she was wearing red shoes. So,
Oh shit.
yeah.
I listened to that podcast on your recommendation and I just forget a lot of the details, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
But that's wild.
yeah. And I know recently, I think they found evidence of potentially Kristen's body having been buried under their house at one point.
Yeah, and then
So,
moved.
who's to say they haven't been moving her body around? You know,
God.
that's total conjecture, but I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe she
Well,
was
that
there.
that was a part of the investigation though, because they brought the cadaver dogs to the Flores house, to the mom's house,
Yes.
I think. And the
Yes.
dogs picked up something, but I think they
Yeah.
didn't have I can't remember. I mean, again, like police negligence. I feel like they didn't have
Mm-hmm.
enough evidence to get a warrant to like dig up the concrete, like dig up the driveway or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Because they built a concrete like platform in their backyard right after
A
Kristen
little suspicious.
disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the cadaver dogs, I think most recently alerted to one of their cars. And initially in the investigation, it alerted to his dorm room. So it's like, how is he not already
Hello?
in
Yeah,
prison?
I
But
know.
yeah, I just really hope that they find her because what a
You
horrible thing
She
everyone
just
who
her
loves her is
family
going
deserves
through.
closure. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Deserve
I don't
closure.
know. I wish that red shoe had been more, but hopefully soon we'll find her.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the dad, according to like the current trial, so it's Paul, they believe Paul did it, but the dad was just like aiding and abetting. Was that the
Yeah,
deal?
like he
Helped him
called his
cover him
dad.
up.
Hmm. Probably he helped move the body and everything.
Charming.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's kind of an impossible position, also.
As
I
a
think I
parent.
know what I would do, but it's like you love your son.
Yeah.
Do you really want to send him to prison for life?
What would you
Yeah.
do?
I would call the police on my son. Like, that's not acceptable.
I think I would too.
But that's easy to say. I
Yeah.
guess I
It's
don't
different
know.
in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oof. Oof.
I
That's some
know.
heavy shit. That's some heavy shit. Oh,
Yeah.
and one just like little note, just if anyone's not familiar with the case, definitely go listen to the podcast. But one
Mm-hmm.
really interesting detail that like made it when we were in school, I think it was the 15th anniversary of her
Mm-hmm.
disappearance.
Yep.
And our like Mustang Daily, our newspaper did like a front page, like full spread on the case and her disappearance and talked a lot about her, like who she was as a
Mm-hmm.
person, which I thought was really nice. But one of the things that was like very early on debunked, like that, so Scott Peterson, if you're familiar with
Yeah.
Scott Peterson, that case where he was sentenced to death, I believe, for murder one of his
Mm-hmm.
wife and unborn child. So he
Yeah.
murdered his planned, like plotted for a while to
Yeah.
murder his
Mm-hmm.
pregnant wife, Lacey.
Right.
And anyway, crazy. But he was at SLO at the same time at Cal Poly
Yeah.
where Kristen disappeared from. So it's just like
Yeah.
one of those freak coincidences that it's
Yeah.
like, well, it couldn't be Paul. Like it must have been Scott Peterson. But I think
Yeah.
he was like a senior when she was a sophomore or something, and like
Yeah.
he had an alibi or something. Like they were able to trace like where he was that night or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But and really all
Yeah.
signs point to Paul. But just an interesting
Right.
little detail if you're into true crime.
Yeah, definitely. Which, yeah, I think that's so kind of ridiculous, even though, of course, that's weird coincidence. But
Yeah.
I don't know if he plotted the murder of his wife for so long. Like, what
Yeah.
makes you think he would just randomly murder
Yeah, it's
someone
not
he
really his
didn't
MO.
know? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but hopefully she'll be found soon.
I hope so.
yeah, we'll
I
see.
hope so.
But this second case I'm going to talk about is actually the one that inspired this topic because I really thought that there was a psychic involved here, but turns
Yeah,
out
so
there
that's
wasn't.
Sean Benet. I was like, what?
Yeah,
I was convinced.
yeah, I know. So I'm going a little off topic, but it is kind of paranormal, so
Okay.
it fits somewhat. Um, so yeah, this is the case of Elisa Lamb, and she So I guess first of all, let me just try to insert some psychic stuff just so it's on topic. That it was there were never psychics involved in the official investigation, but there are a lot like on Reddit and stuff who say that they feel these things, whatever. Um, but there was one who said that she stayed at this hotel where Elisa went missing, and it was before it happened. And she said that she could not bring herself to go into the elevator of this hotel, which comes into play later. So that
Yeah.
was the most like interesting thing that I saw for a
Yeah.
psychic. She
Little
just, there's
nugget.
some energy there at this place that's off, heavy. So yeah, okay. So Elisa was a 21-year-old college student. She was taking a vacation on her own, traveling across the west coast of the US and Canada on a break from school. And as part of her trip, she visited Los Angeles, California, and she stayed at a hotel that has a really sordid past, which I'll talk about more in a little bit. But Elisa was last seen at this hotel on January 31st, 2013, and her body was found 20 days later in the water tank on the roof of the hotel. Yeah, and yeah, I won't even give the details of how they found out that she was in the water tank.
There's a
So
Netflix
we'll
documentary, so
skip
go
that.
take a look at
Yeah,
that if you want
yeah.
the details.
Yes. So, yeah, there's a lot of mystery and speculation surrounding her death because there is no clear indication of what might have happened. And there are a lot of confounding variables that muddy things up. So, the main thing has been this surveillance video that you can find online and has been shared pretty widely of Elisa in the hotel elevator, and she's acting very strangely. So she appears to enter and exit the elevator a couple times. She pushes the button and then kind of jumps back into the back corner, almost like she's hiding. And then, most disturbing to me, she keeps sticking her head out and like peering around the door as if she's looking at something or someone, and then she'll jump back in. So I don't know. There's a lot of ways to interpret that. She does seem to be afraid of something to me, or it could just be, I don't know, odd behavior, which I think a lot of people have tried to explain by calling her mental health into question, because she did have bipolar disorder and she was taking some prescription medications for that. And the toxicology report after her death revealed that the medications she had been prescribed were in her system, but I guess in inconsistent quantities. So it indicated that maybe she was taking them incorrectly or not as prescribed. And that is important to note because one of the medications she was prescribed was an antidepressant, which I read that unless you're taking those medications to the exact specifications, it runs a risk of inducing a manic episode in someone with bipolar disorder. So some people think she might have just been having a manic episode and somehow wandered up to the roof, and who knows what happened from there. But yeah, that's one thing. But then uh, a lot of people also think it could be paranormal, which opens more possibilities, particularly because the person who found her, he said that the water tank, they had to completely drain it and they had to cut it open from the side in order to get her body out. Um, like they couldn't get her up out of the hatch that she presumably entered or was put in through. Even though she was floating when he found her, so it wasn't like diving down to pick up the body. So that just indicates that it would be hard for her to have gotten herself in there if she couldn't get out, and it would be hard for somebody else to put her in there. So it's like, who knows, something else involved. And yeah, I don't really know what I believe. But the reason that people are quick to accept a paranormal explanation is because this hotel is said to be haunted, like very haunted.
Yeah.
This is the Cecil Hotel, and it has seen many things over the years. It opened in 1927, and since then there have been 16 unnatural deaths at the hotel, suicides, murders. Somebody jumped out the window and landed on top of somebody else. Like, just weird things happen there. And also, it has been the temporary residence of two notorious serial killers, one being the Night Stalker, who he reportedly would go out and commit his crimes. He would come back to the Cecil and abandon his bloody clothes and whatever other evidence outside in the dumpsters, and then just walk in half naked to his apartment, which was on the top floor of this hotel, and no one would bat an eye. So that kind of tells you like what the vibe of this place is, that he could walk in.
It's on Skid Row, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So it's in a bad area.
Bad area. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just really don't know, and I hope that we can find out, but it doesn't seem promising.
Yeah. I mean, I know the way that like logically it's explained, because she was also, I think she was naked in the tank, or like mainly naked.
Yeah, but her clothes were nearby.
Yeah, but they were saying that I think, were some of her clothes also in the tank?
I don't remember.
Because there was one theory that like if you played it out in that she was having some sort of manic episode, she somehow got herself in the tank, realized she couldn't get herself out. It's actually very natural to start to feel hot in cold water, and so that she would have been stripping her clothes off to like cool down, but she wasn't hot. She's actually, like her core body temperature, she was too cold, and then probably got to the point where she was so cold that she drowned. So but the problem is that because they found her body so many days later, there's no like bodily evidence. Like she was so probably like bloated and like waterlogged by that point.
Yes.
It's just so like sad and kind of gross. Yeah. But you know, it's not like she had control over that. The thing that freaks me out is like, one, like I know some people who are bipolar, and I do not know them to have, I never know them. I've never known anyone bipolar to have like hallucinations as a part of their manic episodes. The elevator situation is what makes it really weird. And like we'll post a clip of it on our Facebook page so you guys can look at it. But it's really eerie. Like it's just really, really eerie, because it's almost like she's playing a game at first, and then suddenly she seems really scared. And it's like, I don't know. And it comes back to the conversation we've had so many times over and over, right? Like, where is the line between mental illness and like some external force? Yeah. And like, is it possible that those things are actually kind of intertwined? Like, and I don't mean that like a burn the mentally ill kind of way, obviously.
No.
But like, that it's out of their control, but that there's something else happening, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think like her mental health should be a consideration in all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I
But
mean, that elevator scene is just so
yeah,
creepy.
it really
So,
is. Yeah, and it's sad to watch too because she's clearly going through something, whether it's an external thing or internal.
yeah.
But
Oh, yeah, totally.
yeah, it was interesting that you said a game because the last thing I want to say, it's
Mhm.
pretty baseless, like a actually totally baseless theory, but I saw it. So I'm just kind of sharing it as
Yeah,
like
yeah.
something strange and spooky. But some people were saying maybe she was playing the elevator game, which I had never heard of. But
Mm.
it's apparently like you go to different floors in a certain sequence, like 5 to 10 or whatever. And if you do it successfully, you'll end up in another world or another dimension. And yeah, they say that at one point in that sequence, you'll see a woman in the elevator, but if you interact with her or look at her for too long or do anything involving her, then there are, quote, damning consequences, is what they said.
Ooh,
So
that gives me
I
chills.
know,
That
same.
is such a scary theory.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I'd never heard of that game and I would
I don't
not
either.
suggest playing it to anyone.
I thought I thought you were gonna say it's. I don't think it's called the elevator game, but I assumed this is what you're gonna say. That like, do you ever pass by an elevator and it just opens?
Yes, I hate that.
Like that's an invitation from the devil. That like if you step
Oh,
in, you're like basically making an agreement to like be in cahoots
oh,
with the devil.
uh-huh.
So
I
don't
didn't
get in
know
that elevator.
that.
Use another elevator. Take the fucking stairs. But it used to happen to me all the time in my apartment in Austin, and it
Uh-huh.
would freak me the fuck.
Yeah.
And these were like busy elevators, so it's not like
Hmm.
this would happen at like 2 a.m. It would be like
Yeah.
random times, like
Yeah.
in like normal busy hours, where like the
Hmm.
elevators would usually be in use. You'd be waiting for a while.
Right.
So I started just taking the stairs because there was one
Yeah.
elevator that would open. Like there were like three, I think three different elevator like little banks or whatever those are called
Hmm.
of two. So it was like three sets of twos. There were six of them total, at least the ones that I would typically go to.
Hmm.
And yeah, there was like two of the six would do that. And I was like, mm-mm. And then my next door neighbor mentioned that it happened to her, but it was a totally different elevator. Because I was like, well, maybe
Uh-huh.
it's just glitchy. But then it
Yeah.
was the other one of the two main ones we usually would use that was like right outside of our hallway. And I was like, don't like
Interesting.
that. Like,
No.
don't like
No.
hard pass on
No.
that. Thank you.
Not at all. Ugh,
Not
that
today.
used to happen at my office too. I would go
No.
out to go to the bathroom and it would just open every time that I walked by. So it's almost like it was motion activated
Yeah.
or a persistent devil really
The
wanted me to get in there.
devil is nothing if not consistent
Hmm. Yeah.
or
So
persistent, I guess. In this.
persistent. Hmm. But
Oh my god.
yeah, there we
Okay, so
go.
that's the elevator game. I was thinking, like, kind of giggling in my mind. That makes me sound insane, but well, not far off. What if you're like really committed to trying that game, and then someone just calls the elevator?
Yeah.
There's 10 different floors. I have to start all over.
Yeah, they said that it's so weird. I was reading about how to play the elevator game, and it comes from a website called Scary Mommy, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The blog.
yeah,
That blog.
but
I like it.
it says if somebody gets in, you just have to start over. So
Mhm.
yeah,
How
hopefully
annoying.
you'd
Which means
pick
you
a
probably have to do it at like 3 a.m., which is the
yeah,
creepiest time to do it.
right. Yikes.
I wonder
So
I wonder if there are any like cases of people successfully reaching another dimension.
hmm,
We should
maybe
take to
I'll
Reddit
look it
on
up.
that one.
Yeah, we should. I'll look
There's
up
definitely
the.
going to be some like no sleep fictional stories,
Hmm.
but I wonder if there are any
Still.
that are in like a different subreddit that's not dedicated to like creative writing.
Yeah. I'll take a look. That'd be
Chaotics.
interesting.
Yeah. Um, that elevator game, that's scary. That really,
Mm-hmm.
that theory in connection with Lamb, that freaks me out.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it doesn't look like she would be doing that. I don't know what makes me think that. I guess
But
because the elevator also in that video, it's the video is almost 4 minutes long, and the elevator door stays open the entire time until she leaves the elevator.
that's
And
right, because that was another part of the footage that was weird. Even the
yeah.
investigator. So, if you want like a very pragmatic approach to the case, watch the Netflix documentary
Hmm.
because they at the end are like, this is what happened, like very high probability. This is what happened. There was also some like police negligence. Like at one
Hmm.
point, it was like the hatch was closed, which would have meant someone would have had to close it behind her. But then
Hmm.
later it was noted that it was open. And
Open.
so they were
Yeah.
like, I think someone just marked it down wrong as having been closed, or someone
Hmm.
closed it like without
Yeah.
knowing she was in there like days
Right.
later.
Hmm.
So there was some inconsistencies there, but like and just whatever. But the one part of the investigation that had everyone stumped was the elevator video because it's
Yeah.
like why is the door not closing? Like
Hmm.
it just there's something really weird about that situation. And
Yeah.
my feeling is like, yes, I agree. She doesn't seem like well, but if you're in a manic episode, like I could see you being like, I'm invincible. I'm gonna go to another
Yeah.
fucking dimension and play
Yeah.
this crazy ass game. You know what I mean? Like
True. Hmm.
I don't know, based on like the records they have of her, like her conversations with like her sister and her family and stuff, that
Yeah.
were pretty strained, it seemed, those
Hmm.
relationships because as a result of her mental health and
Yeah.
her, I think, consistent issues with taking her meds.
Hmm.
I don't know. She doesn't seem like the type to do that. It seemed like she just really was trying to like get away and like find herself kind of.
Yeah. Hmm.
But but if you're having an episode, like who knows? It's like being on like PCP. Like you might think
Yeah.
you're an orange and start peeling yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
people do
Hmm.
wild shit when they're not in their right mind.
Yeah. Very
And then
true.
if did have like quote unquote damning consequence, I don't
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
Oh, creepy.
I know. Yeah, it is creepy. But hopefully both Elisa and Kristen are at peace.
Yeah,
And yeah, I don't
I hope
know. Don't
so.
play the
I hope
elevator
so.
game.
No, do not play the elevator game. And I don't even know how to prevent what happened to Kristen Smart.
No.
For those of you murderers out there, don't
Yeah.
murder. Stop murdering.
Yep. Yeah. Stop murdering. We'll
Stop
get
murdering,
the
please.
psychics to out
Yeah,
you.
yeah, we'll sick them on you.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, this was I loved this topic this week. We
Yeah.
will noodle on what to talk about next week. But in the
Hmm.
meantime, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Girls
Hmm.
Talk Spooky and stay spooky, friends.
Yes. Stay spooky. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.